On Saturday, May 14, 2022, chaos erupted on the streets when members of the Hells Angels motorcycle club clashed violently with their longtime rivals, the Pagans. What began as a routine encounter spiraled into a massive brawl involving more than 30 bikers, transforming the street into a scene straight out of Sons of Anarchy. The brutal confrontation left casualties on both sides, and while investigators at first believed it to be an isolated incident, it soon became clear that this was merely one skirmish in a much larger and ongoing war, a war driven by revenge, pride, and power. The Trail of Destruction. This bloody rivalry has raged for decades, with each act of violence sparking another in a cycle of retaliation that shows no sign of ending. The trail of destruction left behind, bodies, broken loyalties, and shattered cities, stands as a grim testament to the depth of hatred between these two outlaw brotherhoods. To understand why this relentless conflict persists, we must first trace its origins. The Pagans Motorcycle Club was founded in Prince George's County, Maryland, in 1959. What began as a small fraternity of 13 riders bound by brotherhood and the love of the open road soon evolved into something far greater and darker. By the late 1970s, the Pagans had transformed into one of the largest outlaw motorcycle gangs in the United States, with their power base concentrated across the northeastern states. As their influence grew, the Pagans began forging alliances with major criminal organizations, including the Blood Street Gang, the Philadelphia Mob, and the Latin Kings. These partnerships opened lucrative channels to the Mexican drug cartels, cementing their position in the methamphetamine trade throughout the 1970s and 1980s. For years, the Pagans reigned supreme over the region's narcotics market, but every empire eventually faces its reckoning. By the early 2000s, a series of coordinated police crackdowns in West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and New York devastated the club. Over 70 high-ranking members, including their national president and multiple vice presidents, were arrested and sentenced to lengthy prison terms for drug trafficking. The power vacuum that followed did not go unnoticed. The Hells Angels, always eager to expand their empire, saw the Pagans' weakness as a perfect opening to invade their stronghold of Philadelphia. Their campaign began with a brazen daylight assassination attempt on Steve "Gorilla" Mandan, the president of the Pagans' Philadelphia chapter. Miraculously, Mandan survived 9 gunshots at point-blank range. Frustrated by the failed hit, the Angels turned their attention to Thomas "Thinker" Wood, Mandan's loyal second-in-command and the acting leader of the Philly chapter. But instead of striking with bullets, they struck with temptation. The Angels extended an offer, abandon the Pagans, betray the Brotherhood, and join their ranks instead. Accepting such a deal meant breaking the most sacred vow in pagan culture: Pagans forever, forever Pagans. Yet in 2002, Wood did the unthinkable. He defected to the Hells Angels West Philadelphia chapter, bringing several pagan members with him. The betrayal sent shockwaves through the outlaw world. The Pagans knew that if they allowed this treachery to go unanswered, their name would mean nothing on the streets. Even weakened, they had to make a statement, one so loud, public, and brutal that no one would ever doubt their resolve again. That reckoning came on Saturday, February 23, 2002, at the Vanderbilt Hall in Plainview, New York, during the inaugural Hellraiser Ball, a biker convention hosted by the Hells Angels Long Island chapter. The event, designed as a celebration of biker culture, featured motorcycle showcases, tattoo contests, live bands, and appearances by legends such as Chuck Zito and Sonny Barger. Brotherhood and rebellion. Outside, cameras flashed as a red carpet welcomed guests, the media blissfully unaware that beneath the polished image of brotherhood and rebellion, a storm of violence was about to erupt by all appearances. The Hellraiser Ball of February 23, 2002, was shaping up to be a night of celebration. More than 1,000 guests had gathered at Vanderbilt Hall in Plainview, New York. Cameras flashed, tuxedo-clad angels stepped out of limousines, and reporters snapped photos as club legends like Chuck Zito and Sonny Barger made their grand entrances. It was supposed to be a proud, polished display of biker brotherhood. But just after 4 p.m., the atmosphere turned from glitz to chaos. 10 white vans suddenly pulled up outside the venue, their doors flying open to reveal more than 70 pagan bikers from across the East Coast. They weren't there to party. They were there for payback. Armed with guns, knives, bats, hammers, and axes, the pagans stormed into the hall's main lobby. Within seconds, glass shattered, tables were overturned, and panicked guests scattered for cover. The pagans struck fast and hard, smashing exhibits, breaking windows, and assaulting anyone who stood in their path. The angels didn't back down. Dozens of them charged into the fray, and a violent, close-quarters brawl erupted. Fists, blades, and blunt weapons collided in a blur of motion. Blood was spilled on both sides. The fight lasted only a few minutes, but it felt like an eternity. Then, an angel from Oceanside, New York, Raymond DWI Pizzarelli, drew a pistol and opened fire. 5 pagans were wounded. 1 was killed. The gunfire sent everyone stampeding for the exits. When the dust settled, police swarmed the building, arresting 73 bikers on the spot. In the months that followed, 66 of them would be convicted on federal racketeering charges. The message was clear. The pagans had declared open war. Not long after, retaliation came. Thomas Thinker Wood, the former pagan who had defected to the Hells Angels and risen to lead their Philadelphia chapter, was ambushed while driving along the I-76 expressway. He was shot multiple times and killed instantly. His murder officially remains unsolved, but investigators have little doubt about who ordered the hit. The pagans then turned inward, determined to rebuild. They launched an aggressive recruitment drive to even the numbers against the angels. For decades, the club had been almost exclusively white, but now that rulebook was rewritten. Hispanic gang members and street enforcers were welcomed into the fold, bringing new muscle and new money. Membership surged through the 2000s and 2010s, with whispers even circulating about expanding north into Canada, territory dominated by some of the world's most feared outlaw bikers. But in the end, the idea was scrapped. As former pagan chapter president turned informant Andrew Glick would later admit, in Canada, that's where the toughest 1%ers are. New Jersey bikers are rough, but not like the guys in Montreal or Toronto. Blue Wave Initiative. Instead, the pagans focused their power base in the U.S. Northeast. Their resurgence reached a new level in 2015 when Keith Conan the Barbarian Richter, known for his brutal discipline and military-style leadership, became national president. Recently released from a 14-year prison sentence for conspiracy to commit murder, Richter wasted no time launching what he called the Blue Wave Initiative, an aggressive recruitment and expansion campaign designed to dominate the entire northeastern United States and drive rival clubs, including the Hells Angels, out of pagan territory. The results were staggering. By 2017, law enforcement estimated the pagans had opened more than 30 new chapters across the East Coast in a single year. The balance of power was shifting fast, and both sides knew it wouldn't stay cold for long. The uneasy truce between the angels and pagans began to fracture. Scuffles turned into beatings, beatings into shootings. Every encounter became a spark in a field of gasoline. One such spark came on April 24, 2018, when Hell's Angel associate Jeffrey Shank left the gang's Newark clubhouse and stopped for gas at a nearby station. He didn't know it yet, but that quick stop would ignite the next chapter of this brutal biker war. Security footage from a Bronx gas station captured the chilling moment that reignited the biker wars. Hell's Angels associate Jeffrey Shank was calmly refueling his motorcycle when a red Ford pickup truck rolled to a stop behind him. Unaware of the danger lurking just feet away, Shank had no time to react. 3 men armed with baseball bats stepped out of the truck and advanced silently. Without warning, one of them swung hard, striking Shank in the back of the head. He collapsed instantly. The attackers continued their brutal assault, raining blows until their target lay motionless on the pavement. Shank survived, but with multiple fractured ribs and a collapsed lung. The message was unmistakable. But the Hells Angels refused to be cowed. Weeks later, they made a bold statement by opening a new clubhouse deep in the Bronx, a borough that had long been a pagan stronghold. The move was seen as a direct challenge, a flag planted in enemy territory. The Pagans' response came swiftly. Surveillance cameras caught a convoy of mass bikers riding past the new clubhouse, unleashing a barrage of automatic rifle fire. Bullets riddled the building, shattering glass and tearing through walls. Miraculously, no one inside was injured, but the Angels had no doubt who was behind the attack. Their retaliation was ruthless and precise. In May 2020, Francisco Rosado, president of the Pagans Bronx chapter, was gunned down in broad daylight. As Rosado stepped outside his apartment building, two masked gunmen emerged from a parked Jeep Grand Cherokee. Both carried silenced pistols. They fired several shots, two to the chest, one to the head. Rosado was dead before he hit the ground. This assassination marked a turning point. The Hells Angels had adopted a new strategy, a targeted campaign designed to strike fear into their rivals. According to investigators, club leadership had issued a nationwide green light order, authorizing members to attack pagans on sight. The old code of restraint was gone. The war was now open, and New York wasn't the only battlefield. In April 2022, the Pagans expanded northward into Fall River, Massachusetts, a coastal city once considered Hells Angels territory. Years earlier, the Angels had withdrawn from the region, leaving a power vacuum that the Pagans were eager to fill. But their takeover didn't go unnoticed. The Angels regrouped and prepared to send a brutal message. On the morning of May 14, 2022, a convoy of more than 100 Hells Angels roared into Fall River, their engines echoing through the streets. The plan was to stage a show of force, ride past the pagan clubhouse, demonstrate their dominance, and move on. But things quickly spiraled out of control. Roughly 40 Angels broke away from the main group, determined to escalate. 15 of them, armed with walkie-talkies, blocked nearby roads and acted as lookouts for police. The remaining 25 bikers, carrying knives, bats, and hammers, charged straight at the pagan clubhouse. Outnumbered 7-1, the Pagans refused to flee. They stood their ground, meeting the Angels head-on in a furious street brawl. The fight was short but savage, lasting barely 2 minutes, but it left the pavement soaked in blood. When police arrived, they found a gruesome scene. Injured bikers lay scattered across the lot. One pagan had a knife still embedded in his arm. In total, 7 men were hospitalized with serious wounds. Miraculously, all survived. In the aftermath, city officials shut down the pagan clubhouse, citing public safety concerns. 2 months later, the FBI launched statewide raids on Hells Angels properties, seizing weapons, documents, and motorcycles. For now, the crackdown appears to have cooled tensions. There have been no major clashes since. Yet law enforcement officials warn that this uneasy peace is temporary. Both clubs are rebuilding, and both are waiting for the next spark to reignite one of the bloodiest rivalries in American outlaw history. The abundance of clubs vying for territory led to brutal wars. Crime journalist James Dubrow noted, "There's always been more violence in Quebec. In the biker world, it's known as the Red Zone." Amid this chaos, one club stood out as particularly violent and sadistic: the Popeyes Motorcycle Club. Established in 1965 and based in downtown Montreal, the Popeyes engaged in drug trafficking, prostitution, loan sharking, and contract killings for the Mafia and the feared Du Bois Brothers gang. By 1968, the Popeyes boasted 10 chapters across Quebec with 350 members. That year, tensions escalated with a rival club, the Devil's Disciples, as both competed for control over narcotics in downtown Montreal. In May, a confrontation between the two groups turned deadly when a Popeye member fatally stabbed 18-year-old Gene, a disciple. This marked the start of a violent turf war. A month later, about 60 Popeyes and 50 disciples clashed in a baseball field brawl involving iron pipes, chains, brass knuckles, and bats. Police quickly intervened, arresting 60 bikers and hospitalizing 2 in critical condition. The violence subsided briefly following a police crackdown, but reignited in 1969 when French singer Johnny Hallyday visited Quebec. Hallyday posed for photos with the Popeyes and was named their honorary president. The disciples, also fans of Hallyday, saw this as a betrayal and sent him death threats. Tensions peaked when a disciple opened fire on Hallyday and his entourage at a restaurant, though no one was injured. The renewed hostilities resulted in multiple deaths on both sides. In March 1970, police mediated a sit-down between the gangs, but negotiations failed. By the end of conflict, the Popeyes had emerged victorious, cementing their status as Quebec's dominant biker club. However, this success was short-lived, as new threats began to emerge. Outlaw biker Rod McLeod sought to establish a Satan's Choice chapter in Montreal, earning approval from the club's Ontario-based leader, Bernie Guindon. This new chapter allied with the Disciples to counter the Popeyes. Around the same time, the Hells Angels, the world's largest outlaw motorcycle club, sought to expand into Canada. Initially in contact with the Disciples, the Angels shifted allegiance to the Popeyes after witnessing their ruthlessness and mafia connections. They aimed to have the Popeyes patch over and become Canada's first official Hells Angels chapter. However, this expansion plan faced complications with the arrival of another American club, reigniting old rivalries and setting the stage for future conflicts. In 1974, several members of Satan's Choice traveled to Florida to meet with the leadership of the Outlaws Motorcycle Club, a group based in the American Midwest. The Outlaws, the second largest motorcycle club in the world and longtime rivals of the Hells Angels, agreed to an alliance with Satan's Choice aimed at countering the Angels. The Outlaws became the exclusive distributors of the methamphetamine manufactured by Satan's Choice in their extensive network of laboratories hidden in sparsely populated northern Ontario. This alliance effectively blocked the Angels from expanding into Ontario, Canada's most populous province, while also allowing the Outlaws to gain a foothold in Montreal, enabling them to challenge the Popeyes, who were aligned with the Angels. By 1974, tensions between the Popeyes and Satan's Choice boiled over into a full-scale gang war, with the Disciples joining in as well. Both sides received significant support, including money and weapons, from their American allies, turning the conflict into a proxy war between the Hells Angels and the Outlaws.